Hello everyone, welcome back to Yuno Learning. So here we are with another masterclass, and today we'll be deconstructing another recent IELTS Writing Task 2 question from your IELTS exam. So be with us and see what tips and strategies can you use in your writing task 2 so that you can achieve your designed plans. So let's begin. But before we dive into our writing task 2, let's have a look at what kind of essays can you be asked in your IELTS exam. So there are multiple kinds of essays. There are distinctly different types which can be asked in a writing exam when you're writing your essay. However, the approach to each one of these is slightly different. So let's have a look what kind of questions can you be asked. So there are questions. Let's start with number 1, opinion essays. So opinion essays are the most common kind of essays that are being asked in your IELTS exam. So as the name clearly states it, opinion essays means essays which ask or inquire your opinion on the matter. So whatever the question is, they'll be asking you, do you agree with this thing or do you disagree with this statement? So either way, even if you agree or disagree, there's a different structure, there's the thesis statement specific to this question that you will be using. Then we have discussion essays. So again, as the name states, discussion essays means a topic where you'll be discussing both the sides neutrally without giving your opinion on the matter. You'll be just discussing both the ends in a neutral phase. And then there is an essay with discussion essays and give your opinion. That means that you'll also be discussing the essay as well as giving your opinion later on. Then there are essays that have advantages and disadvantages. So this is also the kind of essays that you're asked in your IELTS exam. So advantages and disadvantages essay, you'll be given a specific topic and then you'll have to discuss their advantages and disadvantages. Sometimes you might have to discuss the question, you might see the question like, do the disadvantages outweigh advantages or do the advantages outweigh disadvantages? That means here you are supposed to discuss both the sides, advantages and disadvantages, but you're supposed to discuss one side, for example, more advantages or more disadvantages than the advantages. So these are the different kinds of essays that you can, come across in your IELTS writing exam. So let's have a look at what we are going to cover specifically today. So today, the essay that we are going to discuss is an opinion essay. This was asked on 29th of July this year, 2023. So let's look at the question. So the question says, many people believe that countries should produce food for the whole population and import as little as possible. To what extent do you agree or disagree? So as the question clearly states that this question is an opinion essay and you are supposed to tell us, what do you think about this? Should the countries import or should the countries be self-sufficient and import as little as food as possible? So take a minute to grasp the question, understand the statement, and then we'll move forward. Even in your IELTS writing exam, always make sure that you read the question at least 5 to 10 times before you attempt the question. It is very important for you to understand the question so that you can get full on score on your task response. So let's deconstruct this question. So first, the question says many people believe that countries should produce food for the whole population. That means the countries should be able to produce food within their own land, within their own terrain, and they should not import. So now the question says, what do you think about this? So understanding this question and deconstructing properly, it is asking you whether do you think that countries should produce all their food on their own or should they import it? So that is the step 1. You understand the given statement. You make sure that each word and each side in the question is clear to you. Step 2, understand the instruction. So what do I mean by instruction? So instruction is the question that is given to you. Here, the question that is given to us is, to what extent do you agree or disagree? So understanding this instruction means this instruction is asking you to either you agree or disagree or to what extent do you agree or disagree? That means you can also form a partial opinion, but how do we do that? We'll be discussing that in the next slide. But the overall question is asking you if you agree with this statement or disagree with this statement. Step number 1 is understanding the given statement. Step number 2, understand the instruction. And then we move on to step number 3, that is generate content. So what do I mean by generate content? So whenever you're given your essay, make sure that you take about 5 minutes before writing your essay to planning what will you be writing. Plan out your structure, your content, and the points that you're going to discuss in your essay. Because once you start writing, it is not very easy for you to make changes all around. Because let's suppose you're on third body paragraph, and then you think of some point that you want to add, then you'll have to reframe the entire essay, which is going to be a little messy for you. So let's see what, all right. So what is the structure that we are going to follow for this particular essay? So as always, we'll start with introduction. So what does your introduction include? Your introduction include paraphrasing of the statement. That means whatever the question is given to you, we will paraphrase it. That means we will write it in our own words. We will change all the wording of this sentence so that it doesn't look copy-paste. Number 2, we will write down the points. That means whatever we are going to discuss on this matter, which will be coming to when we generate the content. And last but not the least is your thesis statement. Now, what do we mean by thesis statement? As we have clearly reiterated again and again, thesis statement means the statement or the answer to the question. So what is the question here? The question here is, to what extent do you agree or disagree? That means your thesis statement will be clearly answering to this question. When I say clearly answering this question, that means your stance should be 100% clear to the examiner that after reading the introduction, examiner should not have any doubt in their head that, oh, is the student agreeing with the statement, or are they disagreeing, or they're going partial. So every aspect of your opinion should be very, very clear to the examiner within your thesis statement. Then we move on to body paragraph 1 for agreement, body paragraph 2 if you agree, and so on. So discussing how many body paragraphs do we need, we'll move on to the next slide. And also, last but not the least, we'll have the conclusion. So this is the general structure of your essays. Now, how many words do we have to write in our essay? So at least you should be able to write 50 words. That means you cannot write less than 250 words. You have to make sure that your essay minimum has 250 words, and you can go up to 280 to 290 words, but try not to exceed 300 words, because excessively wordy or excessively lengthy essay is not also a good way of presenting your answer. So this is how you understand the instruction, plan out your essay, the structure, and the word limit. Now, we also have a question from one of the users, and they're asking, Safal is asking, do we need to write conclusion in advantage essay? All right, Safal, conclusion is not optional. No matter whatever the essay is, you always have to mention the conclusion. And how do you do that? I'll be just coming to that in the next slides. I hope that answers your doubt. If anything else, you can just post out. All right. So for your writing exam, you generally get about, you always get 1 hour, and students generally split it between writing task 1 and writing task 2. So how do we split that 1 hour? How do we make sure that we use the best possible time, make best possible time management? So we generally advise students should keep 40 minutes for their writing task 2 because it is longer, and 20 minutes for writing task 1, that is your report writing. So this is how you can divide your time, and then in these 40 minutes, you can make sure that you give at least 5 minutes or less to the planning of your essay, so that when you start writing, you have clear and concise idea of how you're going to write it down. Next, generating the content for this essay. All right. So there are 2 sides. If we agree to the statement, that means we are saying no import. That means you're saying that there should be or wait, there should be minimal import of food. So why do you think there should be minimal import of food? Why is it important for you to import as less as possible? You will write down the points for that here. And if you disagree with this statement, then we'll be talking about that importing food while also keeping, or we should import food. Why should we import food? And we'll be discussing the points for that. Now, if you have a partial agreement, that means you agree with the statement, but partially, that you say that yes, a country should produce their own food, but import is also necessary, then you'll be giving the points for this. So this is how you're going to generate your content on these three bases. If you agree with the statement, disagree with the statement, or if there's a partial agreement. All right. So let's move ahead. Right. So as I told you already, agreement could be 100% or partial. So if your agreement is 100% or disagreement is 100%, that means you completely agree or disagree with the statement, then you'll be having two body paragraphs, right? Introduction, body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, and conclusion, where you'll be either agreeing with the statement that yes, we should import less, or you'll be disagreeing with the statement, no, we should import more, or importing is fine, importing food is fine. This is agreement or disagreement. But there's a third scenario when you can have a partial agreement. But you cannot go 50-50, right? You cannot say that, yes, whole population is also fine, but voting is also fine. No, you have to give a clear idea that you'll be, even though you partially agree with the statement, but overall you think this is better. So that means you can go 70-30%. In a partial agreement, you always make sure your stance is 70% on one side and 30% on the other side. It can't be 50-50 on the both sides. So first body paragraph, if you have a partial agreement, you will support the partial agreement. And then second and third body paragraphs will be the other view that you're going to discuss. So we know agreement and disagreement essays that they require simple body paragraphs. So today in our sample essay, we'll be discussing how can we go about partial agreement, because this is what a lot of the time students have an issue with. So let's start with the introduction. The introductory paragraph. So what is the structure for your introductory paragraph? As we already discussed, we start with the paraphrasing of the question statement. So you write the paraphrased version of the statement. Then you write the points, if any, and then you write the thesis statement. So these are the essential elements of your introduction. So let's see how we have written this essay. The question of whether countries should prioritize domestic food production for the entire population, thus minimizing food imports, has sparked considerable debate. So see, this statement means the same thing as the question, that many people believe that countries should produce food for the whole population. The meaning of the statement is same. However, we have changed the words and the structure of the sentence to make sure that it is a paraphrased version and simply not just a copy-pasted version of the statement. So see how we have made changes, that instead of saying just giving food production, we have said prioritize domestic food production. That means producing food within your country, and whole population. So we have changed the word whole with entire, then thus minimizing food imports. We have added a dependent clause. So we also changed the sentence structure. I always emphasize in my classes that always make sure in your essay, you incorporate at least 5 complex essays, 5 complex sentences. That means a sentence which has both independent and dependent clause. So this here, thus minimizing food imports, is a dependent clause, and we have an independent clause, thus forming a complex sentence. So this is your paraphrase statement. Then, while partially I support the argument. Now this is the thesis statement that we're going to talk about. That you partially agree with this statement that in favor of self-sufficiency. That means if we prioritize domestic production, we will be self-sufficient, and we'll also have food security. But I strongly contend that a balanced approach combining domestic production and international trade proves more effective. So see, when you have the structure of the introduction, it is not important that you have to rigorously follow that there should be a paraphrase statement and then the points and then the thesis statement. You can also incorporate the points within your thesis as you feel comfortable. So in this statement, we have made sure that our stance is clear. That means if I'm agreeing or partially agreeing and to what I'm agreeing and to what I'm disagreeing is clear. And I've also mentioned that domestic food produce will improve self-sufficiency and food security, while I think there should be a balanced approach, which will be more effective. And then we'll discuss and support these points in our body paragraphs. So this is how you can write your introduction. So the three parts that we should cover in an introduction is paraphrase statement, that we give the introduction to our essay, what we're going to talk about, what is the opinion or your opinion on this instance, and what points are you going to discuss in your essay. So these are the three metrics for introduction, which we have covered here. Let's move on to the body paragraph 1. So body paragraph, the structure for a body paragraph or the requirements for a body paragraph. What all things should a body paragraph have? A body paragraph should consist of a topic sentence. That means an opening sentence. So what do I mean by opening sentence? A sentence which clearly states that what is the agenda of this particular paragraph. We should have a supporting statement that will tell us what and why of this topic sentence. That if we are talking about this particular thing, this is your opening. How is this possible? How and why is this possible? So we'll be explaining it in our supporting statement. Last but not the least, an example to foolproof our body paragraph, that we have clearly provided a topic sentence, we have given the reasons for it, and we have also given you an example so that the entire idea is fully developed and nothing is underdeveloped or nothing is just thrown around in very layman or brief terms. All right, so let's see how we have written this body paragraph. Supporters of local food production stress its role in enhancing food security. So when I'm talking about local food production, how is it helping us? It is helping us in enhancing food security. This gives me a clear idea that in this body paragraph, I'm going to talk about enhancing food security through local food production. This is your topic sentence. But how is this happening? Why is this happening? Or what are the logistics of it? So in our supporting statement, we see over-reliance on imports exposes nations to supply disruptions on account of global factors like climate change or geopolitical tensions. So I'm trying to say that what happens in case that we have excess imports, that sometimes, there's a fight between two nations or there's a climate change and the supply chain is disrupted and you become, there's a loss of food security. So this is how I've fully packed and fully supported my statement, topic sentence with a supporting statement. Then I'm also giving an example. For instance, the link that I've used here, the recent supply chain disruption during COVID-19 pandemic underscored the risk of heavy dependency on imported food. So in the COVID-19, we saw that if you are dependent on imports, then you will have a lack of food security because of the dependency. So we have topic sentence, the supporting statement, an example. In the last, developing a substantial domestic food supply shields countries from such vulnerabilities and ensures a steady provision even in challenging times. So in the last, I have just wrapped up with a concluding statement that is wrapping up my entire body paragraph, which is an optional statement. You can have it and you can also not have it, but you can have this optional closing wrapping statement. Next, let's move to body paragraph 2. Now I have started this body paragraph with conversely. That means on the opposite side. So this is clearly telling the examiner that now we are going to talk about the opposite side of the argument. That earlier you were partially agreeing, yes, agreeing with the statement, but now you're going to talk about why do you disagree with the statement. So the topic sentence says, achieving complete self-sufficiency in food might be unfeasible for all the nations. So what is my topic sentence? That achieving self-sufficiency is a little unfeasible for the nations. Now, why is it so? So I have given my supporting statement: geographic limitations, variable climates, and constrained arable lands hinder the year-round production of certain crops. Now, these are the factors, because in some areas there's a geographic limitations, there are variable climates, there's also arable land that, it's sometimes fertile, it's sometimes it is not, and that hinders the year-round production. This is where international trade comes into play. Now, this was how I supported my idea. Then I have given an example. Now, remember, you always don't have to start the example with your linkers like for example, for instance. You don't have to stick by that. You can also provide example without using a linker, because that also shows the examiner, okay, this person does not have a template, just memorized in their head. They know the language and they have the grasp of the language that they can express their ideas like this also. So countries can specialize in producing items they excel at and then trade to attain products more efficiently made elsewhere. That some countries have some specializations and they can trade it to get something that they cannot make in their own country. Now, this symbiotic relationship promotes global collaboration while increasing dietary diversity and nutritional options for populations. So this is like a closing statement where I'm linking all of the factors above, that this is a symbiotic relationship that promotes the dietary diversity and also the nutritional options for populations. So let's see if all three aspects of our body paragraph are covered here. We have a topic sentence, we have a supporting statement, we have an example also, and then we have wrapped up with the last concluding statement, which is optional, but we have covered every essential part of your body paragraph. All right, moving on. Next, we have body paragraph 3. Since this was a partial disagreement, we will also have a body paragraph 3. If it had been 100% agreement, we could have just finished with 2 body paragraphs. So moreover, we have started it with the linker. That means we are adding to the same body paragraph, the same disagreement. Moreover, exclusive reliance on local production could strain the environment. So that means now the topic sentence of this essay is that if we have exclusive reliance on local production, it will strain the environment. How will it do it? So supporting statement, some areas might resort to unsustainable farming practices to meet domestic demands, causing deforestation, soil degradation, and excessive water use. So I'm saying that sometimes it can put strain on the environment. How can it put a strain on the environment? Because of these things, that people might resort to some unsustainable practices, which can therefore cause these many problems in the environment. So this is your topic sentence and supporting statement. And then we have an example. An example can be seen in regions where the rapid expansion of agricultural land is leading to deforestation, threatening biodiversity and ecosystem stability. So you can say, in my example, we have talked about where people expand the agricultural land tremendously, that areas are moving towards deforestation, less biodiversity, and ecosystem instability. All right. So next, let's move on to the concluding paragraph. So the concluding paragraph, that means the conclusion. So as I previously also stated, when somebody asked a question, conclusion is never optional. Even if it is a disadvantage essay, agreement essay, or a discussion essay, you always have to mention the conclusion. So for few reminders for the conclusion, as I always make sure that I tell my students, in the conclusion, one thing that you always have to remember is no new ideas. You will not talk about anything that you have not previously talked about. You will only paraphrase the things and the points that you have already discussed in your essay. Next, it is just a paraphrased version of your thesis statement. So you can simply paraphrase your thesis statement to write down your conclusion, but make sure that you do not repeat the same phrases or maybe the words, and it doesn't sound copy-pasted. So your conclusion should be paraphrased. It could be the same as the thesis statement. The meaning should be same, but the words and the structure of the sentence should be changed. So we will start with As usual, we'll start with the linker. So here we have used in conclusion. That clearly tells the examiner that we're going to talk about the conclusion here. While prioritizing food security through local production holds value, a holistic strategy that blends domestic efforts with controlled imports provides a sustainable solution. So remember what our thesis statement was. Our thesis statement was also that there should be a balanced approach. So this is just the paraphrase version of that local production with controlled imports provides a more sustainable solution. So see, in this particular line, we have not repeated any words that we have used, but the meaning is same. We have paraphrased, we have used multiple other vocabulary words for us to get a better score. This approach leverages each country's strength while harnessing the advantages of global food networks. Such equilibrium not only guards against supply disruptions, but also promotes international harmony and ecological balance. The supply disruptions, international harmony, ecological balance, and global food networks. These are all the ideas that we've already discussed in our body paragraphs or in our essay. Nothing new has been added in the conclusion. So this is how you approach your conclusion. All right. Moving on. So see, this is the final essay that we have written here. You start off with your introduction that has your paraphrase statement, your points, or your thesis statement. That thesis statement means clear answer to the question being asked to you. Then if we have partial agreement, we will have body paragraph 1 for partial agreement, and then 2 body paragraphs for our disagreement. Last but not the least, we have the conclusion. The few things that we need to focus on this essay is the linkers that we have used. See, conversely, moreover. Then we have also used, for instance, we have other linkers that we have used as an example can be seen, in conclusion. So linkers are always are put there to make sure that your essay is cohesive and it is transitions from one paragraph to another in a very smooth manner. Then let's have a look at the complex sentences that we have used in this essay. So the first sentence itself in this essay is a complex sentence because it is a combination of dependent clauses and independent clauses. Then we have this statement, while some argue in favor of self-sufficiency and food security, I contend that a balanced approach, again a dependent clause, combining domestic production and international trade proves more effective. This is another complex sentence that we have added here. Apart from these, we have to also make sure that we do not repeat the words. So whatever the value words are given to you in the essay, make sure that you have suitable synonyms for them, but always make sure that when you're using synonyms or high vocabulary words, you know their correct meaning and usage. Do not use words that you do not know what exactly their meaning is, or do not use a synonym blindly, because sometimes two words might mean the same thing, but they may have different uses. This is how you approach your task 2 essay. Make sure that you take about 5 minutes to plan your essay from the beginning. Then you write down the structure, generate points, and make sure that you follow all the structures, use linkers. For task response, make sure that you reread the question again and again so that you know that whatever answer that you're writing for your essay is relevant to the question and on track. For coherence and cohesion, use linkers as I already have shown you in this particular essay. Make sure that the flow between the statements is cohesive and it is smooth throughout. The ideas are linked with one another. You are not talking about random ideas at random places. For your lexical resource, make sure that your words are not repeated throughout. Make sure your vocabulary is formal and academic and also has different kind of synonyms which are correctly used and correctly placed. From grammatical range and accuracy, make sure your subject-verb agreement, your tenses are correct. And for the range, make sure that you use different kind of sentences, be it passive sentences, be it complex sentences or compound sentences, to give us to make sure that you can score the desired band score that you are aiming for. So this is what all makes an essay complete in your IELTS Writing Task 2. So that's all for today. And if you have any questions, you can drop down in the chat box. We can address them for you. If not, please do not forget to subscribe to our LinkedIn channel and YouTube channel for more such interactive IELTS session and content. Make sure that you do not miss out on any other webinars that we have upcoming for you. If you have any other questions, you can visit our website for the resources, www.yunolearning.com, or you can call us at this given number. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining. Hope to see you.